Practical response to economic injustice. This is a 6-minute animation. It's been put together by an agency expert in animations. It's based on an hour's lecture which I gave earlier this year. What I'm particularly keen, once you've seen the film, to hear from people who didn't hear my lecture, don't know my background, don't know my research. I'd like to hear whether this animation comes across coherently, what your response to it is. So I'm particularly keen to hear from people who haven't seen the film before.
Can you be happy paying tax? Louis XIV's finance minister famously declared in the 17th century that the art of taxation consists in plucking the goose to obtain the largest possible amount of feathers with the smallest amount of hissing. Here, goosey goosey, gotcha! So perhaps we can't be happy paying tax, but there are ways to minimize the pain. More often than not, these methods often consist of hiding it. Voila! Think about it. How many of us actually know how much tax we are paying? We probably have some idea of how much income tax is coming off our paycheck each month, but would any of us know how much we pay annually in VAT? Anybody? Or how much petrol duty or excise duty on alcohol we paid last year, as around half both of these costs is tax. Yet, while me and you are actually filling the public coffers at the same time we're filling up our cars, all this tax still isn't enough to pay for public services in the UK. The UK's public debt currently stands at a whopping £1.7 trillion. Whew! But surely there must be a better way to raise taxes and pay for public services. Well, perhaps there is, on the other side of the world. So fasten your seatbelts, it's going to get bumpy. Oh, wait, no, we're here already. That was fast. Where were we? Oh yes. In the former British colony of Hong Kong, they have the rather unusual situation for a free market economy that the government owns all the land. Thumbs up to the first administrators for that stroke of genius. It leases out plots of land for an average term of 50 years at large land premiums and charges a further 3% annual rental. The result? Large budget surpluses and no public debt. Put those suitcases back, we're not quite done here yet. So, come on, let's compare the UK and Hong Kong, shall we? In the UK, 27% of tax revenue comes from income tax, while in Hong Kong that's just 14%. 17% of tax in the UK is gathered through national insurance, a further 17% through VAT and 8% through excise duties on things like alcohol, while in Hong Kong, all of these categories account for 0. On the other hand, in Hong Kong, corporation tax accounts for 24%, stamp duty for 13%, land premiums 13%, and investment income 11%. While all of these percentages are much lower in the UK, and investment income stands at a big fat 0. Overall, the UK gathers 10% of total revenue from property. And while, credit where credit's due, this is the highest in the EU, it compares to around 40% in Hong Kong. So what in the glorious name of economics are we doing wrong? It's simple, really. When demand for land goes up and subsequently land values go up in the UK, it's private landowners and not the government that reap the benefits. Developers pay a one-off fee to the government towards covering the government's investments in building roads, schools and other services to serve new residential developments. But that fee doesn't cover the ongoing costs of running those services. Make sense to you? Me neither. And there's more. Another way Hong Kong has found for paying public services is the rail and property model. So let's say I'm Mass Transit Railway, known to my great friends as MTR, the company that runs Hong Kong's underground system and is majority owned by the Hong Kong government. The government allows me to lease a parcel of land at the greenfield price and grants me the rights to build my rail station. In addition to this, I get to develop the land above and around it into shops, offices and apartments. My land, which is only mine short-term of course, and the government's long-term, then increases in value. So the annual 3% fee I need to pay to the government is now 3% of a higher value. At the same time, I hold on to the land around the stations and rent it out to retail tenants who are keen to lease shops here with so many potential customers. And I rent out flats and offices in high rises above the stations to people who are more than happy to pay a premium in order to be as close as possible to the stations. All of that brings me, the MTR, profit. And again, I pay a portion of that profit to the government. Like I said, genius. In the UK, similar land value increases have been seen around stations on the new Jubilee Line and Crossrail. Like in Hong Kong, land in the UK is limited and the land value rises as the land is put to more intensive use by growing numbers of people and more economic activity. But in the UK, land value increases are only benefiting private owners. I'm starting to feel we haven't thought this through. Changing ownership status isn't actually needed and would be tricky, but the government could earn substantial tax revenue by introducing an annual rental on the value of land around stations. And they could recalculate the rental rate every 2 years to avoid any nasty surprises. As a result of its policies, the Hong Kong government has a wealth fund of $386 billion versus the UK's debt of $1.7 trillion. It can afford to invest in young people, science and technology, as well as in hospitals and the elderly, making the average Hong Kong citizen feel, quite frankly, much more positive and less hissy about the tax they pay. So perhaps we need to step away from being a bunch of hissing geese, wise up, and become copycats instead. If this has spiked your interest and you would like to learn more, visit our website.